Well, this is Baruch Fleischman here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. It's the end of the day. It's the time of dinim after mincha. Coming over here to try to get a little sweetening. Now, this is the third time that we've gone through this little idea and this little bit of Zohar that we're learning right now. And we have the concept here of Ner-Shamma. So remember that we talked about what you're actually looking at, and it has to be examined and really understood, but just to give it its flesh. Here we have Ner-Shamma is really the refraction of the light of the Ein Sof Baruch that we can understand from our position. So from sitting, looking, if it's possible to look from Olam and Atzilus, and you could see up above, which you can't really, you would see that the light follows the pattern of Ner-Shamma. The lowest part of the light that really represents Malchus to the most extent, is called Nefesh. And then the next letter, which is Ruach, which is the Resh for Ruach, that represents really Zeir Anpin. Then you come to the concept of Ner-Shamma. Ner-Shamma is a deep panemius. It's more panemi, so we could look at it like this. Ner-Shamma is inside of Ruach, and Ruach inside of Nefesh. So these are called, by the acrostic, which we're about to see in the Zohar that we're going to be looking at, these are called the Neuron. The Neuron. Because I've said this before, but it's a little hard to appreciate at this point, is that the light is extremely powerful. The Neuron actually enters into Zeir Anpin of Atzilus, meaning that the same light gets refracted down to us, maybe a billion, million, uncountable and infinitesimal times, but it ultimately reaches us in the form of what's called Neuron, Nefesh, Ruach, and Ner-Shamma. That comes in. But there are two forms of light which are called Chaya Yechida. These two forms of light are too powerful to be able to enter into the Zeir Anpin of Olam Atzilus, much less enter into us. So they're called Makifim. That is, they surround and shine like the sun from the outside in. The Chaya part, which is the Ches, that part is closer to Zeir Anpin of Atzilus. And as a result, it comes in but can't stay, and it's just too big. It's too big of a light for Zeir Anpin to handle it. Now, the Yechida, which is the last and very, very difficult to understand, is further away. It's much more distant, but the light that it represents is much more powerful. Now, so that's good. That's our lesson in Ner-Shamma again. And I ask you all to bear with me as I'm trying to get these teaching videos in a way that it's helpful. So let's go over here, and we're on page Resh Lamed Zayin. Resh Lamed Zayin here is continuing on with the conversation that we said before. Now, again, back to the Ner-Shamma. What did I do with it? How could I lose it in just such a short amount of time? But apparently I did. Here? How about here? Oh, here it is. Okay, so back to our Ner-Shamma. Just one thing I want to point out is that these are moving from the left to the right in terms of the magnitude of the light that they represent. So just talking about Nefesh for a minute, that is the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu that keeps your body going in Kedusha. And then Ruach is the breath of Kedusha. Ner-Shamma is the panemius of this Kedusha. Chaya is also called the Ner-Shamma of the Ner-Shamma because it's inside. That light, as the light is refracted of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, this is inside of the Ner-Shamma, although in its nature is that it can't actually go inside because it's too powerful. And then Yechida, but so therefore it's called the Ner-Shamma of the Ner-Shamma. And then Yechida would also be the Ner-Shamma of the Ner-Shamma of the Ner-Shamma, but we don't see this very often. All right, let's go over here, and now let's look at the Zohar. So similar to what we were talking about, the body is created. So let's talk about the Ner-Shamma. He says there are 4 different parts to it. Shehem Ner-Shamma, the Ner-Shamma, and they're called Ner-Shamma, the Ner-Shamma, which corresponds to the Ches of the Ner-Shamma. One more time, a little quick look at it. There it is. It corresponds to the Ches of Ner-Shamma, is also called the Ner-Shamma of the Ner-Shamma. So you're really going this way in terms of physicality. It's becoming more and more physical as you move from the left to the right. Now let's go on again. There are four different portions. Shehem Ner-Shamma the Ner-Shamma, right? It's the Ner-Shamma which is called Chayav. And then the Neran, which is Ner-Shamma, Ruach, and Nefesh. Ka'ayin Zecha V'Avera Kodesh Baruch as a goof. So similar to these four, the Kodesh Baruch Hu created the body. Now we're going to go into the number 4 and look at it. So he created from Arba Yesodus, and he's now teaching us the 4 different Yesodus. And let me see if I can get this closer so that we can see it a little bit better. There it is. So he says, going on, he says, that's not it. Ma'arba Yesodus, Eish, V'Ruach, V'Afar, U'Mayim. So these are the 4 Yesodos. And these are different things that we have to hear in different places. So one is fire, one is Ruach, one is dust, and the other one is water. So let's try to compare it to the concept of Chaya, which means the Ner-Shamma inside of the Ner-Shamma. So we're talking about Pnimius. Hi bechinas hamayim shehi b'chochma. This is the concept of water, which we find in Chochma. So water is a symbol of Chesed. Chesed is on the right side, as we've seen the figures of Zeir Anpin, and I'm working on some printouts that will make it easier for us to see this. Ner-Shamma bechinas ha'eish shehi b'bina. So the Ner-Shamma itself is the aspect of Eish, which is in Bina. Eish is Bina. Bina is a statement that we make about Bina. We say that Bina dinim mis'ariminal, that the dinim are awakened there. Not that that Bina is din. Bina is in the Rosh. Bina is very high. It's much higher than din. It's beyond that. But nonetheless, dinim come out of that, out of Bina, and therefore it's called Eish. V'Ruach, bechinas haruach shehi Zeir Anpin. Zeir Anpin is the aspect of breath. So we see in other places it's the concept of voice. He said v'nefesh, he bechinas ha'afar. That's the concept of the dust, meaning the dirt. It's earth. He said shebemalchus, and malchus goes with that. Every time you see a reference in the Torah, you can start darshaning at this yourself if you wanted to. And you see the word land, or you see the word earth, different kinds of ways of soil, anything that says it's just all malchus dikatok. Because malchus is physical. It's the real dirt itself. And most of the parashas Yesod the Mayim. So let's go over and let's try to understand, he says, the secret of water. Ki mayim da docher. The water itself is male. So let's see what he means by that. Mayim he bebechinas zacher misada chochma, because chochma is on the right side. So it's been generally speaking is saying, as we're going to get some drawings, and I probably could get them out, probably tomorrow, just need the time. He said that we could understand that Zeir Anpin has 3 lines. The right line is the line of Chesed, and that starts with chochma. So therefore, water, which is Chesed, which is on the right line, is going to be considered to be, chochma is in that line. V'dohu mayim matikin the kedusha. So this is the sweet and sweetened water of kedusha. V'hei mayim motokim mitzad the kedusha. So there's sweeter waters from the side of kedusha. Shemisham misorder ha'adam lahargish mitikos ha'tara. So he said, let me read this again. He said, v'hei mayim matukim. What are these waters that are sweet that are coming from Chachma? They come from the side of Kedusha. Shemisham misora, from that place is awakened, the madam is awakened, the man is awakened, the hargish mitikus haTorah, to really be able to sense the sweetness of the Torah. As we're learning here, the Torah is so sweet. Kamashakasim umutukim midvash venofes tsufi. So they're more sweet than honey, and the honey of honeys is something really, really sweet. Vis mayim hama'aradim, and that's the mayim of kedusha. The mayim of kedusha, because there is a replication on the other side, looks like the same thing. Is that Esav and Yaakov are twins, right? One is on a complete side of bad, and the other one is holy. So, but they're brothers. They're twin brothers. There is mayim ha'ma'aranim. So that's why we say there is water that causes curses. Dinan yetzer hara. That is our yetzer hara. V'yesh negdam mayim ha'ma'aranim, bitter and cursed water. Shehima yetzer hara v'hasitra achras. 2 words for the other side. Shemisham is order ha'adon lahargish meruros belima the Torah. And this awakens a person to look for and to sense the bitterness when he's learning Torah. V'atem befarish as yisod the eish. So that's what he says. He says there is, I'm not really sure that I understood this part, so let me read it again. V'yesh keneged mayim. So opposite of the mayim is the side of Esav. Hama'aradim, which really cause bitterness, a difficulty, and curse. Shehem ha'yetzer hara, which is the yetzer hara and the sitra achra. Shemisham is ora ha'adan lahargish meriros belima the Torah, that when a person then goes to learn, he really just feels bad as he's learning. Why? Because he's gotten himself involved with the other side. Then he says like this, V'atem mefarash es yisod the eish. So let's go, that was the concept of water. Let's talk about the concept of fire. Is Esha Kadisha Nukva. There is an Eish, which is holy, and it's to the side of the femininity of Kedusha. Yesh b'yisodas ha'adam, Eish shel Kedusha b'chinas nekeva, mitzad bina, ha'mitzoreres es ha'adam, l'hislache b'chavodas Hashem yisbarach. Well, let's get it. Let's take some time and translate this. He says, Yesh b'yisodas ha'adam. So we're talking about the fire, the heat part of our bodies. We get hot, right? Eish shel Kedusha, it is a fire, though, from the side of Kedusha. What does this fire of Kedusha do? Bechinas nekeva. Well, first of all, you have to understand that it's the side of the femininity, of feminine. Feminine is the side of the left, the side of Bina. Bina is female, Chachma is male. So he says that just a certain word on the side. What does it mean to be female and what does it mean to be male? And the fact is that male and male could be female and female could be male. What does that mean? Well, that means that the masculinity is the concept, and I recommend to everybody, I do have a background in psychology, to read the book Garden of Peace. It's not an easy book for everybody, but it's actually based on this idea itself, that in marriage and in relationships, the masculine attitude is to give. It's to constantly be giving to your female partner, because that's really what she needs in order to make your family and yourself holy. She needs to have your attention and be poured onto her to lavish her with Kedusha. Same thing, the opposite is true in terms of the female. What does a female do? The female wants to receive, because she ultimately cannot produce children unless she has a man. That's called husbanding. So she needs to have the input, but she craves it. And as the Sulam said, I was just getting a little carried away here, as the Sulam used to say, if you want to know what the word Kabbalah means, this is the Sulam saying this. He says it's the Ratzon Lekabel. It's the desire to receive. And that is what femininity is. It comes to the left line, the line of Bina, and let's go on before we get too involved in this. It's Esha Kedusha Nukva, it's a female attitude. Yesh b'yisodas ha'adam, Eish shel Kedusha, Bechinas nekeva mitzad bina, so this is all feminine, comes from the side of Bina. Hama oreres as Adam lehislave ba'avodas Hashem yisbarach. Which what does it do in Kedusha? It awakens a person to start becoming inflamed with the avodas of Hashem yisbarach. In other words, we get passionate about learning. This Eisha nuchra, Eisha zara, but there's another kind of fire. It's a foreign fire, a fire which is strange. V'yesh kenegda eish nachri, so it's the foreign fire. Hanikras eish zara, it's called a foreign fire. Mitzada klipa, because where does it come from? It's the side of klipa. Klipa is the side of taiva. V'chamorebes is Adam, which really arouses a person. Lehislath alahe, to become kindled and impassioned. Achar taivas olam hazir, after the what's supposed to be the great banquet here in this world, that's all the person wants is the feast. V'al kasiv, it doesn't work. V'al kasiv, in this it's written, V'al ha'esh zara chazos, she'osa hikriva b'nei Aaron. said that when we talk about the Eish Zara, this Eish Zara, that was brought by Aaron, remember that over there? But it says like this: at every time, every moment, don't come into the Kodesh. In other words, the holy temple. Ki osa Eish Hazara, because when you bring a foreign fire in, which is the desire to receive, in other words, to get pleasure, just physical pleasure from this world. And usually when they're saying that, they're talking about averas that have to do between men and women, let's just say sexual averas, because this is the biggest stumbling block to allow the flow of bracha to come into this world. It's a deep subject that we have to think about. And all of this taiva, all this desire to fress from this world, come from the nukva, the side of the kalipa. As you saw the ruach, but let's talk about ruach, which we said previously refers to zeranpin. So the ruach, back we go to Yud, represents chokhmah. K represents bina. So you went male, female. Now you come back to the vav of the Yud K Vav K, and this is male again. Ruach HaKedusha, hu mitzad zer anpin ha'ma'ora esa adan lilmoda Torah, which arouses the person to learn Torah besod ruach mamalala, which is the concept of a breath, of a wind, of a voice that speaks. V'is ruach, let's go on a little bit more. V'is ruach masa'ava, there is also a tumadik ruach. Da Yetzer Hara, that is the Yetzer Hara, excuse me, let me pull this back over again. So it says Misa'ava, so it's tumadik. That's the Yetzer Hara. V'yesh kenegdo, when we talk about the ruach of zeranpin, corresponding to that, there is a ruach which is also a ruach of tuma. 1 second here, my microphone. Whoa, just learning how to do this. Okay, let me find my way back. So he says, V'yesh kenegdo ruach hatuma mitzad zachar, the klipa, shuha Yetzer Hara ha'ma'ora esa adan l'davar devarim b'teilim. So what does this ruach do? Let me get back over here because I've got this all lined up. It's difficult for me to get it lined exactly right. Let me push this forward and get it where it can be seen all the way around. There's a microphone. I just really don't know how to do this. Get everything done. I'm getting better. Okay, let's go back over it. Misa'ava, so there's a ruach, Misa'ava del Yetzer Hara, which is the Yetzer Hara. V'yesh kenegdo ruach hatuma, it has a breath of tuma. Mitzad zachar, which also comes from the male side. Where it comes, the male side of the klipa. Shucha Yetzer Hara, which is the Yetzer Hara. Ha'ma'orach esa'ada dedavar devarim b'teilim, which arouses a person to start talking things that don't need to be said. Over here we could talk about lashon hara, we could talk about just bad language in general, and talking about things which are not good for a person to be talking about. Shene'emer ki mishorish nachos yetzet sefer. He said from the root of the smoke, of the snake rather, yetzet sefer, there's a poison that comes out. Pirish, mishorish anachos yotzer ruach hatuma, comes out, the ruach hatuma comes from the side of the serpent. Hanikrat safa. And this side, this shorish of the nachash and this ruach is called by the name of tzafa. Tzefa, I don't know exactly. He has it up here. Tzefa, it's pronounced. Ba'atim mefarish as you saw the offer. So that was those three. So now we have Ner-Shamma, we have Ner-Shamma, the Ner-Shamma, we have Ner-Shamma, we have ruach, and now we're coming to that part which really refers to malchus. Va'omer is offer kadesha. But there's a side to the dust, to the dirt, to the ground itself, that is called holy. Yesh b'yesod adam afer kadosh mitzad malchus. There is a holy earth, which is kadosh mitzad malchus, that really refers to the side called malchus. Hamever adam lehis atzel b'davar avera, that holds a person back from doing something bad. This offer misa'ava, but then there's another kind of offer. In other words, physicality. It's a physicality that you could get a hold of yourself and hold yourself back. This offer misa'ava, but there's a tumadika offer. V'yesh offer tameh mitzad klipa, so there's also one which comes from the side of klipa. Hamevi es adam his answer b'davar mitzvah, so that's the opposite. It makes a person lazy and he doesn't want to do the mitzvah. So therefore, let's go back and let's get some ideas. The concept Ner-Shamma is the concept of Bina. He said that previously. We have to remember that. And Bina is the concept of tshuva. Why? Because it comes from Bina. Bina is tshuva. Askifas be bahakul nachash l'savra le b'sheivu de tshuva. So he says, what does this mean? Miskaveris. It grows powerful. It becomes overpowerful, and it overpowers the nachash. Lishbor also, to break it. Ayidei shiva da tshuva. Because why? Because a person gets himself indentured to the concept of coming back to Hashem. That's going to be his path. So the same thing brings a person over to the places where he can pray and learn. Then it brings us over to places where we can learn and pray. He says further, where we are here, now let's understand these four yisodos and what they say they were. They were mayim, they were eish, fire. Then the next one is ruach, and the next one is Ner-Shamma. So ruach goes along with breath, with air, and the last one goes along with das. So these dalad yisodos, if you add together their shorish, now the shorish means the pedemius of them is added in, they become he bechinos amispashtos l'kof beis osius. What happens is that this kedusha, these five, they flow into the 22 letters of the Torah. Now, understand the letters in many places, and we could see this as we get. I'm still looking for a chavrusa, but to start learning the Otros Chaim again. So he says over there, we're going to understand the concept of letters is the concept of malchus. In other words, it holds the light that comes down into it and refracts it. And they come from the five different utterances of the mouth, and each one of these five corresponds to one of the letters of the Naranchi, which we're talking about lights of the Ein Sof. Kach Batam, that's what he says, which is Keser, Chochma, Bina, Tiferes, and Malchus. So, in other words, that's another five letters. Let me just go back over that one time. He says that, let's go back over to Ve'elu Hadal Yesodos. So these four Yesodos, if you include their Shorish, it comes to five different aspects. Five Bechinos, some is Pashtus, Lakof, Beis, Osius, and they wind up going and being refracted in the letters. Ve'hem Yotzes, Mehem, Otsalas, and you actually hear them. They come out of the five different types of utterances that come out of the mouth, Keneged Naranchi, which is also corresponds to the five letters of the Naranchi. Keneged Kach Batam, and then corresponding to those five is also the concept of Keser, Chochma, Bina, Tiferes, and Malchus. Meforish, here they come and they're going to tell us these sounds, and these are the five utterances of the pair of the voice. The first one is called Ocho. It includes these letters. These sounds are produced in the throat, Bechinas Bina. So the Bina of Eric Anpin is in his throat. So that's a different issue. We'll talk about it another time. The next one is called Bumuf. Misfasayim Keneged Amalchus. So the letters are called Bumuf that are made actually from the lips. The lips of a person, they correspond to Malchus. The next set of letters is called Gihak. Gihak is mechek. This comes out of the palate. In other words, up above the throat. These words Gihak, that's where they're pronounced from. And the letter Gimel sometimes is pronounced Ja. So we always pronounce it like Ga, but it could be otherwise. Gihak, which I think the Taimanim do that. Keneged HaChochma, that refers to Chochma, and the last five letters of the 22 letters are Datlanet. Those are words that are pronounced by the tongue, the Lashon, that come from the tongue. Keneged the Das, which refers to Das. Shehi Hitsonius HaKeser, what is Das? Anyway, Das is below, so it makes it on the outside of Keser, it's on the middle line. And then the last one is Zashratz. Mishinayim, these are sounds, these letters, the Zayin, the Samach, the Shin, the Resh, and the Tzadid Safi, they all come from the teeth, Keneged Zer Anpin. So that's our little bit of Torah here for today, and this is Baruch Fleischman learning Zohar with the help of Hashem, and hopefully trying to get the blessing of Hashem. This is Baruch Fleischman.